With the latest on the corporate front, all the market trends, expert opinion, and sound business advice, it is your unique window into the business world, direct from the heart of China.
Hello and welcome to Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. China's trade in goods continued to grow in the first 5 months of this year. From January to May, foreign trade totaled nearly 18 trillion yuan, or around 2.5 trillion US dollars, and that represents a 2.5% increase despite the uncertain global economic environment. The customs agency also says the number of foreign invested firms exceeded 73,000, the highest number in 5 years. And meanwhile, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations remained China's top trading partner, with trade up over 9% to 3 trillion yuan during the period. China's trade with the U.S. dropped 8%. And meanwhile, private enterprises recorded a yearly increase of 7% in foreign trade. And several multinational investment banks, including JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and UBS, have raised their forecast for China's GDP, citing the positive impact of the government's growth policies. And JP Morgan, for example, has made the largest upward adjustment, raising its China outlook by 0.7 percentage point to 4.8%. So for more on this, join us on the line now, Li Lun, Assistant Professor of Economics, Peking University, Dr. Zhou Mi, Senior Research Fellow at the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation, and also Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University. So yeah, I will start with you. Let's talk about China's foreign trade. The foreign trade in goods expanded by 2.5% in the first 5 months, despite all the trade uncertainties that we are seeing. So what's your perspective on that?
Well, I think that shows that the Chinese trade is very resilient. That's largely because China's trade competitiveness. We have seen that because of the U.S.'s tariff war, the export to the United States has dropped both in April and also in May. And let's remember that May is the month where the full scale of the tariff was felt by the economy, because by April the 2nd, when the Liberation Day tariff was announced, it was not until May the 8th when the Geneva talks started. So in May, this whole month, there is a high, very elevated tariff on China, and that is 145% from the United States on China's exports to the United States. So despite this, in May, even though the export to the United States dropped by 34.5%, but China's exports to the ASEAN countries have gone up by 15%, to Europe has gone up by 12%, to Africa has gone up by 33%. So all of this just shows that China has been diversifying its trading partners, and China's products remain very competitive and welcomed in the various markets. We know that China's exports composed mostly electronics and electrical machinery, which China really has great competitive advantage with. So that means, China is going to continue to be able to trade with many countries and export many high value added products. And now that we know with the 90-day truce and then the positive news from the London talk recently, I think that means the external environment will be improved, even maybe temporary, or could be, more enduring. But I think whatever that external environment might be, I think China's exports will remain very resilient.
And Li Lun, actually, China's trade with ASEAN, China's largest trading partner, was up over 9% for the first 5 months of this year. So how do you see the growth potential of China-ASEAN trade going forward?
Yeah, so we're seeing that ASEAN countries are China's top trading partner. So I think some of the key drivers for this growth include the geographical proximity, as well as the flexibility in terms of logistics. And so we're facing with uncertain trade barriers between China and the U.S. But within ASEAN countries, because it's closer to China, the time to transport between China and these countries are shorter. Also, in terms of the cost effectiveness, factories in China and ASEAN countries can arrange their inventories more efficiently. So if they want something, they can order from China right away instead of waiting for a month for the container ship to arrive. So these combining with the fact that countries like Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia, they're some of the highest growth countries in the region or among the world actually, and they have over 500 million population, which have a huge potential for consumption. So I think these factors combined explains why we're seeing that China is exporting more to the ASEAN countries, and we can, I think, expect this growth to extend in the future.
And Dr. Zhou Mi, so China's trade with the U.S. dropped 8%. How do you look at that? And the China and U.S. delegation held the economic and trade talks in London this week. What's the outcome of this latest talks?
Well, in my understanding, the companies are really taking care about what's the cost of doing businesses. Well, in my understanding, it is true that China and the United States will have so many areas of cooperations on the different products and also different activities. So for the enterprises, they really want to do more to import or export with the U.S. counterpart. Even in the previous several years, although there are some higher tariff, like the 301 tariff from the first term of Donald Trump, the trade between these two countries increased, but this time it's different. So we are seeing that at April, the trade between China and the United States has dropped. I think that it's really something that we can understand because of the very high tariff and so many uncertainty. So the companies have to think whether it is appropriate to just do the business right now or postpone the trade in the later time. So they're considering about this situation, and they want to know more from the better signals coming from the governments. Well, as you mentioned, that China and the United States has just finished the first round of the trade negotiations or talk in London. I think that they have reached some very effective result, like the frame has been set up. And I think that is really important for us to know more about both governments, what's their attitudes and what's their real consensus. Because even with the talk, between the two leaders, I don't think that market has understand is especially from the written agreements. So this framework has shown the market some of this better expectation. Well, on the other hand, this framework also are giving us some of this idea on what are the main areas of collaboration or talk for the next round or for the further continued work by the working groups. So these are really some messages we can get from this talk. I think that has a very important impact on the world trade market, and also giving us more time to prepare for what we should do to put more emphasis on the technology or other commercial cooperation between China and the United States.
And Dr. Zhou Mi, so what does it mean by a framework in principle? What exactly does it contain?
I think that in my understanding, this contains several areas. The first one is that it will set a tone for the relation between China and the United States, especially on the economic levels. What kind of things should we do as the competitors, or just opponent, or even we can do something together? I think it's very important for us to know the tone and the principles. The second is that we have to know about the framework on what things we should do in the short term, like for some of the concerns from the United States side and also from China side. What should we do to try to deal with the disputes and trying to set up certain kind of mechanism to resolve these problems? Maybe we cannot just finish that in just few days, but it has provided us with entrance for the better platforms or negotiations or talks. And the third one is about what we should not do. I think that framework also are trying to give the message to the market that because we are having so many complicated relations between these two countries, so there are so many new areas that have been touched by the administrations of the United States like for the restrictions on certain kind of areas that haven't been touched before. So we have to make it clear that the consensus we have reached in this framework should not just limit it in this region. We have to be careful about what we are going to do because China, United States, we have so many powerful impacts in the world. If we cannot just limit ourselves, limit our intention to making further protection, I think that there will be more measurement that will distort the cooperation between us and also will weaken the trust between our two countries.
And Li Lun, let's take a look at China's domestic economy. China's inflation rate dipped 0.1% yearly in May. But if we exclude the food and energy prices, the core inflation was up 0.6%. So what's your take on China's latest CPI number?
Yeah, so we're seeing that the CPI remained pretty stable. So I think it indicates rather a stable consumer demand. I mean, when we look at the CPI numbers, we always think it only reflects domestic demand. But I think in China's case, the CPI also reflect supply. For example, when the domestic companies are facing more intense competitions from either domestic competitors and global trade tensions, they tend to decrease their product prices for a higher market share. So that's what many people worry about, the so-called deflation spiral. So when firms compete and the prices goes down, the profit margin for the firms goes down, and then the wages or the salaries goes down, and so does the consumption because people have less money to spend. So from the CPI number, we're seeing that prices are remaining quite stable. So the situation, the scenario that people worry the most has not happened. And also, I'd like to point out that CPI only measures the prices that you need to pay for a constant basket of goods. So it does not reflect, for example, product innovation. So for example, we're seeing new goods and new consumer products being innovated every day. For example, like the Labubu introduced by Pop Mart. It's a new product. It doesn't exist, it's not as popular a year ago. So that the prices of these new products are not counted in the CPI numbers.
And also, Dr. Zhou Mi, China has been implementing stronger and more targeted measures to boost consumption. So how effective have these efforts been?
The efforts is not just from one area. It's a national-wide kind of policy intentions. So I would say that is a systematical way of encouraging the consumption. While the second, I would say it is also very important for us to create so many scenarios like the festivals, like different kind of very specific events to provide the consumption better abilities to adapt to the consumers. So this is very important. So if you are looking at the numbers, the consumptions includes maybe not only the consumption in the goods, but also the services. While the consumption in the goods are still increasing, maybe not that quick, but in a different form, like from e-commerce, it's increased quicker. But the consumption in the services recovered even quicker compared with previous months. In my understanding, what is more important, that is the confidence of the consumers. If the consumers do have a better expectation about their future income and also the disposable consumption abilities, they will put more money to do that. So there were several practices, including the policies on the real estate, and also some of the new educational universities being established. So there are so many new policies that we are trying to give more support for the consumption. Well, if you are looking at import measurement, we opened our market for so many agricultural products from other countries, and that also providing us with better choices. Like Professor Li Lun has mentioned, the CPI is a combination between the consumption and the supply. So we have more choices for the consumers. I don't think that is really our problem about the price. It's about the balance between the quantities and the qualities. So I would say this is the phenomena we are seeing. The consumption is improving, maybe not that strong, compared with some other country, but we are in the way to getting better abilities to support the development of the economy.
And this is the consumption. So, Yan, China will further advance the reforms in Shenzhen. Actually, China has recently issued guidelines highlighting the new reform measures for the Southern Tech Hub to break the institutional barriers in education, science, and talent development. So, what do you think are the priorities of the reform for Shenzhen, and why is it now?
Well, I think the idea here is to continue to reform and open China. And we know that Shenzhen has been a sort of a trailblazer and a window and experimental kind of platform for China to test out its policies. So I think right now the government wants to further reform the city and amplify its role as a key engine of the so-called Greater Bay Area, and really using it as the so-called radiating hub to promote more reforms in the entire country. And so the idea is to really integrate, education, technology, and high-end, manufacturing, high-end sectors to really develop the city, more technological advanced, more financially advanced, and also with other the Great Bay Area cities together. And so when it comes to the reform, I think they really emphasize on three things. One is on the education. For example, they would encourage foreign investors to build more vocational training programs in Shenzhen. They would also give more autonomy for the cities to recruit and manage the overseas talents. In a way, it wants to really develop more talents in China because, from the recent interview with the CEO of Huawei, Ren Zhengfei, he basically says that, these technological export ban, be it the high-end chips or the software, are not really the choke points for China's technological development. What is really needed is the AI talents and tech talents. So I think this idea that, promote education and skill training, it's very important, and Shenzhen will be the one that tries different ways to achieve that goal. And the second reform is mostly from the finance aspect. For example, it talks about encourage insurance companies to invest in private equity funds and also venture capital funds in specific sectors. Also allow companies that are from the Great Bay areas that are listed on Hong Kong to be able to also list in Shenzhen. So this is a way to try to provide more finance for all these enterprises. And lastly, I think very interestingly is about regulations. For example, it talks about to improve the regulations of the low altitude economy and the aviation services to the Great Bay areas, and also reform to enhance data securities and also the cross-border data flow mechanisms. So I think it's quite interesting. The focuses on education, on finance, and on regulation seem to be the focus of the next step of reform, at least, again, using Shenzhen's reform as a sort of an experiment, right, as a trailblazer kind of program, and to be later, to be able to promote later to the entire country.
And Dr. Zhou Mi, so the guidelines emphasize strengthening the integration of innovation, industrial capital, and talent chains while exploring new scenarios and platform for the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area Cooperation. So tell us more about this Greater Bay Area Cooperation. What's its uniqueness?
I have been taught this kind of class in the Guangdong for several years, interacting with the students from other countries about the Great Bay Area of Hong Kong, Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau. So from this discussion, we have many ideas about the comparison between these areas together with several other or three main areas in the world. So generally speaking, I would say that the scale of this Bay Area is the largest in the world, and it is also the most complicated in the world. So there are so many new potentials, like the space are so huge, and the industry there are very complicated, and it's evolving very quickly. So I would say that for these GBA areas, it is really in the process of involving and development. I just returned from Macau, and we have some discussion with the scholars there, and they really are feeling we want to do more, and we have a better integration, not just from the space and also from the industries, about the better collaboration in the integration of these resources, as you mentioned, about the flow of the resources and the better elements we can have from all these three areas. So it's not just our bounded areas, and it is open one. It has also many interactions with other parts of China, like with Guangxi, with Hunan, with Fujian, with other provinces. So the GBA is trying to be better connected with the world. It's a very important anchor for us to discuss about the collaboration, even in the Belt and Road region. It is a very important areas, and it will still leading the development of China, especially on the openness and the innovation.
And now China is targeting a GDP growth rate of around 5% this year. At the same time, it wants to create 12 million urban jobs. So, yeah, actually, we found that as China accelerates its digital transformation, companies like Alibaba, like Huawei, they all ramp up efforts to recruit and train the AI talents. So, how do you explain all this phenomena, and what does it tell us about China's AI development?
Well, I think to be able to achieve that growth rate, we need both the supply side and the demand side. And from the supply side is the idea that China needs to cultivate high quality productive forces and promote technological innovations and productivity growth. And from the demand side is trying to stimulate domestic demand, high quality investments, and also consumption demand. So I think technology is very essential here. Not only emerging technologies in and of themselves are producing great economic values, but also many of these all-purpose technologies can be adopted and integrated into the broader sectors and industries. And so together, that would help to boost productivity growth in various sectors. And I think AI is particularly important. This is a next generation technology. It is also all-purpose technologies. Right now, China is leading in many of the AI technologies when it comes to foundational models like the DeepSeek, but it's also making great progress in integrating AI in various industries, be it from advanced manufacturing or to the service sector like healthcare, education, and so on. China now is home to over 4,500 AI companies, and the core AI industry value now is about 600 billion yuan, and it's expected to grow, to 1 trillion by 2030. So I think actually this is $1 trillion by 2030, according to McKinsey and Company. So as I mentioned earlier, Huawei's CEO has mentioned that the race of AI is about talent. So as you just mentioned, that many companies are now recruiting. In fact, I think in the recent job fairs, like in Guangzhou, for example, they have 50,000 openings, and many of these are in electronics, advanced manufacturing, and AI-related fields. So I think, there is very high demand for the AI talents. We know that China does produce a lot of STEM students, 1.4 million per year, but still, I think there are some very specialized areas that there's still a shortage of these skilled workers. And so the next step is definitely that we need a lot more investments in not only basic education, but also some of the very specific training programs to really integrate AI into the curriculum. In fact, I think China is doing it right now. Over 500 universities in China now offer AI-related majors or have AI-designated schools. And that's important to reform and to expand educational system. But more than that, we're also seeing higher education institutions and companies, they join efforts, something like Beijing and ByteDance, they established a joint lab. Nanjing University and Alibaba, they also had a comprehensive agreement to collaborate on AI talent development. So we're seeing all these collaborations, and I think those are really going to bear fruit. And last but not least, I also think that, with all these companies, they are also provide really good on-the-job trainings. And so that would, again, help to cultivate the AI talents. And I think the government is also using all kinds of measures and trying to, recruit and retain some of the AI talents from elsewhere. So I think all of these are very important to be able to develop the AI talents in China to support the industries and therefore the broader economy.
And yeah, actually, recently, several multinational investment banks, including JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, they have now all raised their forecast for China's GDP this year. So what's your take on that?
Well, I think they have expressed optimism for China's growth, partly because I think the trade, the so-called tariff war seem to be improved in the right direction. And in a way, I think the U.S. has been backed down from the outrageous kind of high tariff that they imposed earlier. So that created, I think, a little bit better external environment for China's growth. But more importantly, I think they really have the optimism about China's government, policies. We know that the Chinese government has established, especially in fiscal policy, they raised the deficit GDP ratio target from 3% to 4%. That's going to increase 1.3 trillion yuan fiscal spending. They allow for more special bond issuance, both at the central level and the local government level, setting up all the relending facilities to support the housing market, the equity market, and also some of the refinancing for service industries and so on and so forth. So I think it is because of these very supportive policies that I think the markets are looking positively on China's growth this year.
Well, we're speaking with Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University, Dr. Zhou Mi, Senior Research Fellow at the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation, and also Li Lun, Assistant Professor of Economics, Peking University. And that's all the time for this edition of Biz Today. To listen to this episode again or find more previous episodes, you can download our podcast by searching for Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. Thank you so much for listening.